All right, everyone. Welcome to our fourth Wildlife Society meeting. Hope everyone is ready for the spring break to start. I know I am. We've had some tough weeks already with exams piling up in 1 week and quizzes and such. So definitely enjoy this meeting. This will be our last one until we get back from spring break. And then if you have any plans for spring break, enjoy it. Visit some family, go hiking, go outside, enjoy the outdoors. Amanda won't be here today, so I'll be hosting the meeting. She had to go do some errands and then get ready for an internship application that is due pretty soon and slash interview. So everything's being piled up on her right now. So she's getting things done, but no worries, everything's taken care of here. So we're gonna start with Mr. Ben Olson, but after his talk, we'll definitely have some announcements for at least 15 minutes. So please stick around if you want to hear all the updates that have been going on in the recent weeks. It looks like there's a lot of new opportunities coming y'all's way, so you definitely want to keep in contact with us, and uh, we'll see what we have in store so far. All right, so real quickly, I'm gonna do a general introduction, and this was written by Amanda. So quick introduction for Mr. Ben Olson. So Ben grew up just northeast of Kansas City, Missouri. He grew up on his family farm and always loved animals and their conservation. This passion led Ben to seek a bachelor's degree in wildlife conservation and management at Missouri Western State University in St. Joseph, Missouri. Ben quickly became an active member of the university student chapter of the Wildlife Society. Here, Ben was involved with countless activities volunteering for non-government, state, and federal agencies on a wide range of topics. Ben successfully led the university student chapter to multiple awards, including the following: 2 International Student Chapter of the Year awards, 1 Sectional Student Chapter of the Year, and the Missouri Department of Conservation Outreach Partner of the Year. Additionally, Ben received the following individual awards as a student chapter member: Missouri Western State University Conservation Honors Award, Missouri Western State University Sophomore of the Year, and Swan Lake National Wildlife Refuge Volunteer of the Year. Following graduation in May 2014, Ben was hired as a biological science technician at Los Bluffs National Wildlife Refuge. Here, Ben served as a Youth Conservation Corps supervisor and assisted with several research projects on the refuge. Wanting to continue his education, Ben started working towards a master's degree at Texas A&M University Kingsville in January of 2015. As part of the Cesar Clayburgh Wildlife Research Institute, Ben studied the impacts of the thermal environment on northern bobwhites. In December 2017, Ben completed his master's in range and wildlife management. Ben was hired as a limited-term wildlife biologist for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. With Wisconsin DNR, Ben worked on a variety of projects, including coordinated the area's surveillance of chronic wasting disease, black bear research projects, ruffed grouse and American woodcock habitat improvements, and assisted with the management of over 15,000 acres of public land. In January 2020, Ben began working for Texas Parks and Wildlife Department as the district wildlife biologist for Comal and Kendall counties. So without further ado, I want to invite Ben Olson. And let's see, stop share. Alrighty, it's all yours, Ben. I think you're co-host already now too.
Sweet. Let's see. Try to get this going. We don't use Zoom too much, so I'm not as familiar with the buttons, but you guys should be in good shape now seeing the PowerPoint. Is that right?
Yep. See
Perfect.
The introduction right now.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Josh. That was a pretty thorough introduction. So I don't know, where to fill up those gaps. But so what I wanted to talk about is I know you guys have a lot of biologists that come in and speak. So I kind of wanted to change gears from talking about the traditional, like what's a biologist do and things like that. I wanted to talk more about, kind of the realities of trying to get a job in the wildlife or natural resource career field or profession. My hope is to kind of have a little bit of discussion and get folks kind of thinking about what they're doing, think about maybe things that they could be doing to improve themselves. One of the things my undergraduate advisor always kind of talked was that students is kind of an archaic way of referring to people in school, and especially in the natural resources field. Really, students are developing professionals. You guys are already working towards your career. And so, thinking of yourselves as a developing professional, I think really helps align with some of the challenges that we have to overcome to get wildlife jobs or natural resource jobs. I'm going to use those pretty interchangeably. So, to kind of start is, I guess I'll kind of talk about a little bit of my background, hopefully not talking about some of the things Josh did but I mentioned my undergraduate was in Missouri Western State University, where I was student chapter president for several years. This is a very active student chapter. As Josh mentioned, we were fortunate enough to receive the Student Chapter of the Year award several times. And so part of that is because of the work we did. And so we worked with countless agencies ranging from federal, state, and nonprofit organizations. But our biggest and core work was with Les Bluffs National Wildlife Refuge, Swan Lake National Wildlife Refuge, and the Missouri Department of Conservation, where we had all these activities. Usually there would be multiple activities on a week, each weekend throughout the whole semester. And so students could really choose what they had time to do, and then, what they preferred to do or what they needed to do to gain better experience. And these things, ranged from, various wildlife surveys to outreach events to applying management through like invasive species removal, planting native seeds to, like I said, surveys. So, things that actually are done in the career field, not necessarily, various events such as, cleanups and things like that, which are important too. But a lot of it was spent on things that we as biologists do every day. And then at the time, I also had several internships, and I was pretty picky about the internships I took. Usually the idea was to find an internship that filled something that I felt like I could get better at. And so, these hit on specific topics such as public land management, wildlife research, and then the big one was learning how to public speak and how to be okay with that. I'm an introvert at heart, so that was really difficult for me. So I took an internship where that is the only thing I did an entire summer, was talk to groups of 30 to 100 people every day, which you will quickly either get to where you can figure it out, or you don't succeed. So you got to deal with it and learn. So at a lot of this experience in additionally, I didn't have in here, but different like certifications and stuff. We were fortunate enough to have Safe Capture International, which no longer exists, but and as a new organization now, where they teach wildlife folks how to safely use chemical restraint on different wildlife species. We had certification on that, how to use GPS units, the Trimble units specifically, and how to incorporate those through ArcGIS and different programs and stuff like that. So as well as burning and a whole bunch of stuff. And so that led me to get hired at Les Bluffs National Wildlife Refuge, as mentioned, as a crew leader or supervisor for some students that we're out benefiting and improving the refuge throughout the summer. So this was learning more about public land management. I also worked on a research project on what's called real-time kinematic surveys, which is a kind of an advanced GPS technique that's used for mapping wetland units and refuges. And what this does, the end product allows the manager to be able to get accurate within millimeter measurements of the exact amount of water in each wetland pool at any time. They just read off of the main gauge that they're nearby, and it's all because you've driven the unit and you've done this survey, you can calculate exactly how much, how many cubic feet of water are in the unit. I went to graduate school trying to get a little bit better idea of how much I actually don't know about the natural resources field. That led me to Texas, where I worked on thermal resource selection for northern bobwhites as part of my thesis. But I also did a grassland restoration and had quite a bit of opportunity to present at conferences and things like that. Texas chapter, as you guys well know. So graduated from my master's in 2017. I had a really hard time getting a job, frankly. My wife worked in Wisconsin, or my fiance at the time, so I went up there. I was able to land a limited term position as a fisheries technician. It was a job that, frankly, somebody with a master's degree was way overqualified for. But that's what was open at the time and what I could get. And so I learned a lot about fisheries, and I'm pretty thankful for that now. I was able to do some different fisheries surveys, talking with anglers and collecting some survey data for those folks, and I was able to learn a lot. I was up in northeastern Wisconsin, so I got to work with folks that are doing a lot of research on the Bay of Green Bay up in Lake Michigan. So I got to learn about a lot of things that I didn't have a chance to learn up until that point. That work, led me to eventually get hired as a limited term wildlife biologist, where, as Josh mentioned, I worked a lot with chronic wasting disease and some various other research projects. Chronic wasting disease is in Wisconsin is probably one of the most prevalent states for chronic wasting disease. So it was a really good learning experience on how that disease can progress and eventually limit the number of folks that are out hunting and things like that. That I'm not going to open that door because that's a long discussion. But so during that time, I was applying for a lot of permanent positions and struggled for several years until eventually I was able to land this position here in Texas that I'm pretty thankful for. But up until that point, there were 5 or 6 different jobs where I was a runner-up for, which is kind of the reality of where this field is right now. So, that's kind of a segue into, let's talk about some of these challenges that we know. As we're aware, this career field's very challenging. It's competitive. There's not very many jobs in the grand scheme of things. It's not as common as, some of these jobs, such as, nurse or accountant or, things like that, where pretty much any city you can find jobs in that field. In natural resources, we're not that lucky. So you have to have a willingness to travel and explore new places, which adds its own new elements of having to learn completely different types of habitat and things that are important to an agency. One of the things I learned that, while some of these small details change, the grand scheme of things, the rules of habitat management are the same regardless of where you go. There's just small little details, and once you figure out those, it's pretty easy to move. Except for plant ID is completely different everywhere you go, and it's, for me, has been one of the most challenging things of moving. So, and another thing is, whether you want to be a generalist or a specialist, I think the days of being a wolf biologist or a mountain lion biologist are getting pretty limited. We as biologists are having to know a lot about many different things nowadays. It's not just specializing in one thing, prescribed burning or brush management, things like that. You're going to have to be a jack of all trades nowadays. Just in the last week, I've done a prescribed fire on Friday. I was scheduled to do some sparrow banding yesterday. It ended up getting canceled because of wind. Last week we had a team district meeting where we ended up doing a lot of brush work and for a landowner that the winter storm damaged a lot of their property. So we ended up helping out with that. Site visits for private landowners all in the last week. Obviously, I'm talking to you guys now. So you got to be able to do quite a bit of different things. One of the things I deal with, which is growing, is the urbanization of especially many parts of Texas, and working with those human wildlife conflicts that are associated with that. We've got a really high deer density in this region, and the conflicts there are increasing year by year. So those are important. So having a broad range of experiences and knowledge is becoming increasingly important. Another challenge is that it can be a challenge or a benefit, but everybody knows everybody. Whenever from the time you start school and start going to things, you're in a job interview. Now, but professionals pay attention to things and talk to each other. And so when jobs come up and things like that, usually people get to talking. I think my dog's scratching at my door, but, and so, what you do during internships and stuff and how you carry yourself, even at conferences, things like that matters. But I'll just talk. I had an experience where I interviewed for a position where they were trying to make the decision on who to hire, and I didn't end up getting it, but that led to me getting the position I got now. But they ended up calling somebody that they knew I had worked with to ask for an extra recommendation, even though they weren't written down on my as my list of references. And so, and luckily that person, gave me a positive reference there, but still that stuff happens. And so, as part of that, I actually in prep for this presentation, I called my supervisor, district leader, Mike Miller, and asked him, out of the last several wildlife biologist positions that have been hired here in the Edwards Plateau district, how many people have applied and things like that. And some of the information he gave me, while not totally surprising, in a way is staggering. And so, for example, out of the last 2 wildlife biologist positions, an average of 117 people applied. So over 100 people for each position. Of those 117 people, 64 of those people were qualified to be a biologist or well qualified. So any one of those 64 people could have been a biologist that had been hired. Out of those 64, 77% of those people did not get an interview for that position. Only 15 people got the first round interviews on average. So, 49 people on average didn't get an interview, which to me is pretty remarkable. So, having to separate yourself out of that group of 64 into those lucky, 15 that get interviews is pretty difficult. And of that, only about 5 people received final interviews. And so, I think that this information is pretty important to be aware. And I think it's a great example of exactly how competitive things are right now. There's lots of folks looking for jobs. And so it becomes important, to reflect on yourself. How do I become one of those people that can even get to the first round interview? So think about things you've done for your things to include on your resume, different jobs, things like that is important. And that's kind of where I'm wanting to go with this. And so when I was an undergrad, I spent a lot of time when I was president of the student chapter, kind of reflecting on how to benefit our student chapter members and how to, continue to improve their ability to get jobs and things like that. So we came up with this concept called the triad of success for wildlife professionals. And it's these 3 concepts that, while they sound similar, have differences, and they all lead towards being a really good candidate for jobs. And those are professional development, skill set development, and leadership development. Diving a little bit more into these, professional development, Seems we talk about it quite a bit, but its definition is the process of earning, maintaining professional credentials towards a career. This includes your academic degrees, specialized trainings, conferences, workshops, certifications, such as I've got the picture here of my associate wildlife biologist certification. These are all important. In a lot of cases, such as your bachelor's degree, is your ticket to get into the next step of the hiring process, or just having the application accepted. Usually that's a minimum requirement these days. And so, how can you improve your credentials through different specialized trainings, conferences, building up, networking, workshops, things like that are important and things to be aware of. Skill set development. I think something that is kind of not as commonly found or talked about among students, and that is, identifying your own personal gaps in your own skills, and then figuring out ways to develop and improve these skills is critical. So I use that example for me, having a hard recognizing that I wasn't a very good public speaker. I still don't think I'm a great public speaker, but I'm okay with it now. And so seeking out experiences to where I was forced to be a public speaker was important for that. And it got me to a point where I could actually do it and be okay with it. And so, skill set development is incredibly important. We can't go anywhere or do anything without working in teams. And so being able to recognize, your own capabilities, whether it's being a lead role or what role you can serve as part of a team, is important. I think this leadership development category, I think you could change that into, being works in teams, because, not everybody's going to be a leader, but recognizing how to work in groups or teams to achieve a common goal is becoming incredibly important. And so, putting all three of these together, as a student, looking for opportunities to improve your skill set, what professional development opportunities can you take advantage of? Are there any leadership positions that you can take advantage of to gain further experience? So, and this is all towards, how do you set yourself apart? How do you become at least one of those people that are interviewed for a position? And so, utilize anytime you can. I recognize it's hard being a student's very difficult. I had to work my way through to pay for anything and everything. And, I totally understand how difficult it is. And I know it's only getting worse, but, trying to find paid summer jobs or internships is super important. And finding ways to do volunteer work is important. Attending conferences when you can, when there's not a global pandemic going on, things like that. And even the little things, such as having your resume looked by a professional is important, whether that's somebody that's on your references or not, or just random, somebody like a local biologist or something like that, would be willing to help out and might be able to, again, get you from that group that's qualified but not necessarily interviewed to start with. So, TPWD has a number of different volunteer opportunities. Each county has a wildlife biologist assigned to it. There's a number of different positions, such as our, Jonah Evans or state mammologist, just some of the other diversity programs for like Texas nature trackers or master naturalists, things like that. There's a lot of opportunities out there to talk with somebody that works for the agency. What I've got here on the slide is some of the stuff that I just thought of today that are quick little things that, have opportunities for volunteers. I had a great group of you guys assist me with CWD testing this past fall during the regular deer season. I'm hoping to expand that next year. I leave it up to you guys, and your executive board, but I'm totally open to doing a workshop about teaching you guys deer aging and how to sample CWD stuff going into the fall to help you guys learn these things. We've also got dove surveys coming up. Dove trapping during the summer could always use assistance with if folks are around. We've got our regulatory deer spotlight surveys. Comal and Hayes County are going to have our surveys up this fall. Those kind of transition for every other year. So those are coming up. Once things kind of start open up to where we can finally do some in-person things again, there's going to be a lot of outreach opportunities. You know, and I'm willing to, if somebody just wants to come hang out and ride for like private land site visits, I'm totally open to doing those things. So some of the things that I do, you know, because of my experience as a volunteer student and things like that, I think I'm a lot more open to having folks join me on things than most folks. Not that that's a, you know, bad thing on their end. I just seek out those opportunities more, I think. And so I keep a list of folks that contact me that are interested in volunteering. And when I have something pop up that makes sense, you know, I'll email those folks out and say, hey, I'm going to go, you know, work at the processor this weekend. If anybody's available, you're more than welcome to come. If you're not, no worries. So, you know, if you're interested in that, feel free to shoot me an email and go from there. So, you know, this last slide I have here, it's just got my contact information down, my email, my phone number, where my office is. Like I said, because I come from a background of volunteering and heavy involvement with student chapter, I absolutely love working with student chapters and students, given the opportunity to teach folks things. And so I'm always willing to help out students for anything. So that's kind of what I have prepared. If you guys have questions, I would love to try to answer some. So, and I'll leave this slide up for a second.
Sweet, thank you, Ben. If
Yeah.
anyone has any questions, feel free to turn on your audio and just speak your question, or if you want to put it in the chat, I can read it off for y'all.
I didn't have a question. I kind of just had a comment. I'm a master's student and I've done a few internships over the years, and kind of what Ben was saying is like, you kind of have to move around. Obviously, like you have to be willing to like go to different places. Like I've done 4 or 5 internships, and like one was in Arizona, one was in New Mexico, one's in Colorado, one was in South Texas. So like none of them were even like near. I'm from San Antonio, and obviously I go to Texas State, but none of them were even near here. So like you just have to be really willing to like go out and bite the bullet per se, you know, and get that experience, because it'll definitely be worth it in the long run. And by no means am I in Ben's position. I'm still making my way there, but you know.
That's an excellent point, though. I had internships in northern Minnesota, very southern tip of Missouri, and so, and obviously I went to graduate school in South Texas, which was completely new to me, being from Missouri. And so, you know, there's a huge value in going to completely different regions, and I kind of alluded to it, that, you know, you'll learn that each agency or each organization you work with has little differences, but at the end of the day, they're doing similar things, and you learn. There's huge value in learning how people approach different tasks and stuff like that. And I think that's been a huge advantage for myself, working in different states and stuff like that. So,
sorry, I had one more thing too.
yeah.
I'm sure most people know about USA Jobs, but I don't know if y'all are familiar with Texas A&M Job Board. That's like a huge, y'all probably already know that, but that's like the number one, at least in my opinion, the number one job board to look at for our.
I still, because of the habit that I started, I still check A&M Job Board, and I have zero interest in looking at like applying for jobs, but I still check it just to see what's out there.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot to be learned, even if you're not at a point where you're looking for jobs. If you're a freshman, check those out and learn what are people actually looking for jobs. I think that the A&M Job Board is the place to go, for sure.
It looks like Daisy has a question on the chat. Is it difficult to get an internship if you have zero experience?
I mean, it depends on the internship. It can be difficult, but at the same time, a lot of these internships, they're looking, especially the entry level internships, they're looking for somebody that just wants to work hard and learn. You know, I forgot to mention, but here in the Hill Country District, it's not an internship, but it's a full Fish and Wildlife job technician. We hire for CWD sampling every year. I think from September to end of February. Here in the Hill Country, we hire 7 people every year, and not always do they have a ton of experience, but finding people that are willing to learn and work hard is difficult too. Now, that's not to say that it wouldn't be challenging to get internships, but there's plenty out there. Right now, I know a lot of our WMAs have the summer internships posted right now, and so folks can apply. And another little tip, especially if you're somebody that you think, well, I might not have the experience. A thing that could help you very easily would be to give a call or an email to the hiring supervisor for the job and talk to them, ask questions about what you're looking and things like that. Sometimes you can create that spark with that supervisor and they'll at least pay attention. And so, and I guess, another thing you can do is if you're doing volunteer work through your guys' student chapter, add that's some experience too. Everything you do matters. So I'm going to stop before I get super long-winded.
I have a question too. How does like field work abroad translate to like domestic jobs? Like, is that still valuable experience if you want a job in TPWD, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think so. I've been on a few panels for hiring. We're looking for, what did you do? And can you tell us what you did, whether that's in your resume or in an actual interview. Are you able to actually talk to it? And how does it relate to the job that you're applying for? I'm not quite sure what you would have done abroad, but if you've done something that's relevant, then yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. In fact, I would, if I was on that panel, I would kind of be more impressed than anything because, somebody took the initiative to, not just leave their state and learn something new, but an entirely different country.
So Ben, you mentioned that you had to work while you were going to school. How were you able to manage that while also getting experience?
Yeah, so I was one of those people that I was doing something all the time, whether it was just working a normal, part-time job that college students have to do. I was also an RA for a while to help pay for housing and things like that. I just found a way. I just made it happen. I didn't really get to do a lot of the fun stuff college students get to do, but then again, I'm sitting in my job now. So, that was the point. But if let's say if I had to miss something that we had going on a weekend, I found a way to do something during the week. If I didn't have classes Thursday afternoons, was there something that I could go help? Now, I was pretty benefited in that the Northwestern region office for the Missouri Department of Conservation was on campus. So it was easy to, wander over there and help out if they had like an afternoon outreach thing going on or something. But, just find ways, like I said, I'm willing to take folks on things if they have free time. They can, might not necessarily be on the weekend or, during the week too. You just, got to seek out those opportunities and take that initiative. Obviously it's difficult, but there's no other way around it,
Yeah, I finally just started getting to volunteer recently at Atwater's National Prairie Chicken Refuge, and like the whole time I've been in college, I feel like super behind compared to my peers because I have to work.
Yeah, it's hard. It's that's It's hard, but it's doable. You know, it is doable. You just got to find a way to make it happen. I wish there was a better answer, but that's the way it is. You know, attend conferences when you've got the chance. Right now, you know, everything's been virtual. You don't get near as much out of it, obviously, as you would being in person, but it expands where you can go and listen to what folks are doing, and maybe you pick up on something that you can do, or you know, things like that, or maybe a local park has something open that you guys can assist with, or you know, there's always something.
I will say for Daisy or whoever was asking with the zero experience, it was a class project that got me in contact with wildlife biologists in my area, and then I got a bunch of volunteer opportunities off of that, which, you know, could always translate into an internship if you make an impression on them.
Yeah, and this might be surprising, but it's really hard to find good volunteers. It can be really challenging. I know some of the other biologists that I work with have said that they've had a really hard time, and some of them, you know, just quit seeking it because it's been so hard for them. So, you know, when we find good volunteers, you know, we tend to stick with those folks pretty heavily and rely on those for work. So.
Real quick for anyone that wants to know. So going back to, I guess, the work-related conversation, I've been a person that has had, I think, 3 jobs in my college career, part-time jobs. And I think what's helped me in gaining a lot of experience, especially with the Wildlife Society and graduate research assistants and undergrad programs, is just trying to stay in contact with your manager or supervisor, stay in good relations with them, and work with them. If I know, it comes down to time management too. That was one big thing that one of my jobs really like just drove in our heads all the time, is time management. Make sure you have some type of scheduling system, whether it be Google Calendars, old school calendar, which is what I'm doing right now, and I've been doing, and it's been good. But it's just communicating with them and making sure that if you have an opportunity that's coming in 2 weeks and you could schedule that off, and you know you've been doing good with your job, then talk to your manager, talk to your supervisor. Don't stay quiet, and let them know how important these opportunities are for your future career. That because you don't plan to work this part-time job for the rest of your life, you eventually want to move somewhere and develop your skill set. So I think that's what's helped me personally in trying to get a lot of opportunities while being at Texas State. And also, I think putting in my 2 weeks and moving on to another job, that might actually help me. I almost put myself into a hole by working at academies. And with any retail store, they want you 24/7, and it's hard to get time off. So I was lucky to get another opportunity working for like, I guess, a community snack shop that pays me a little bit more, but is a lot flexible and lenient on my schedule. So if I could get someone that could work with me, I'd rather take that than the amount of money that I would take based off the amount of hours I would put into work. Because for me, it's really all about trying to get field experience, understand different types of concepts and processes, and networking. And just like Ben said, and every other professional that we've had in these meetings, it's highly competitive, and it really starts in your undergraduate career and trying to figure out what you like. Is this field for you, and do you have enough of what these employers are looking for? So I always keep that in mind, and it's not easy. And it's easy to stay comfortable, and sometimes you have to change that to better yourself and for your future. And Ben, I had a question. I noticed on some job postings, like in Texas A&M job board and such, that there's positions for like wildlife biologists, but it's like wildlife biology 1, wildlife biologist 2, wildlife biologist 3. What does that mean? Is that like some sort of experience system that they need? Or?
Yeah, so usually we've got it here for TPWD, where there's technically my position is natural resource specialist. And then there's a level 1, 2, and 3. And that just is based on the number of years of experience. And it increases like your pay and stuff like that as you go up the ladder. It's just kind of a way to, I guess, promote folks with different experience levels, things like that. I think most states do that to some degree. Sometimes it's more upfront by having it 1, 2, or 3. Sometimes it's just kind of, in with HR. So
Yeah.
that's what that is most of the time.
Okay, sweet. And I don't know if you know this, but do you know when the deadline for, I guess, or when the TPWD summer internships will be taken down? Because I know they just came up in mid-February, but
don't.
on some of them there's no deadlines.
How do I stop? I can look it up really quickly.
A few of the WMAs, it's March 15th is the deadline that I saw for like Mason and Kerr and stuff like that. But
Oh, for
Yeah.
Mason.
yeah,
I just found out that they were open the other day.
Okay. Looks like.
Yeah, it looks like there's quite a few things open right now too.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Here's the one for Kerr. Closed, yeah, March 15th.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, and it looked like some people in the chat were saying that. I guess it varies. Like for park interns, it may be up a little bit later.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Again, that's where, fill out the application and get that. And then I would highly recommend trying to find out who's in charge of the WMA or the park or whatever, and getting a hold of them and talking to them. Something in my endeavors, it's surprising how few people actually do that. Very few people. So that's one way to get yourself a leg up just from the get-go.
All right, guys. Well, if no one else has any questions, thank you, Ben, for joining us on the Zoom meeting. We really appreciate it and appreciate for what you had to share for us today.
Yeah, anytime. Like I said, I'm always willing to help out you guys. If you guys ever need anything from me, I'm just a hop, skip, and a jump away. So
Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll definitely stay in contact. And if anyone wants Ben's information, if you didn't get it on a slide, just let us know, let the officer group know, and we'll get that to you at a moment's notice.
yeah, and I'm gonna send my presentation to Amanda.
Okay.
Probably here in just a few minutes. So she'll have a PDF copy of it, so you guys can send that out or whatever you guys like to do. So
Sweet. Appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah. So I guess with that, I'll take off, and you guys take care, and good luck with classes and all that good fun stuff.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So we're gonna have some quick announcements real quick, about 15 minutes, and then let y'all get on y'all's way. All right. So for the month of March so far, right here, March 10th. So this upcoming weekend, we did announce this a couple of weeks back, but the Bighorn Society down in Van Horn, Texas, they're actually having their water guzzler project. So it looks like we're getting a large group of Texas State students that will be going out there. And just to let y'all know, this is not a society-related event. This was just on your own if you're interested in trying to gain more experience. So if anyone is going, hopefully you'll have fun. Make sure y'all be careful, stay safe, and definitely have a great spring break. And then when we come back next week, we'll jump into our 5th chapter meeting, and we'll be talking about living sustainably with Dr. Simpson's daughter. That weekend, we'll be going to the Chaparral WMA down in South Texas as well too. As of right now, all spots are filled up. There is more details on the calendar description about what we're planning to do at the event. So definitely read up on those. And there's going to be a list of field items to bring as well too. So we'll send a general email probably when we get back from spring break on Monday or Tuesday, just to remind y'all to and to make sure you have everything. It looks like we'll be taking 5 vehicles, and to maintain COVID protocol, it's going to be 2 people per vehicle with mask on at all times. So definitely read up on those. That's going to have the departure time and the arrival time on Friday of when we're planning to get there. A full work day on the 27th consisted of vegetation surveys, the general WMA tour, to even doing some pitfall traps and trying to catch some herps and small mammals if we get lucky, and then wrapping it up on Sunday with doing a little hike or birding if we have the energy for it. And then we're on to the next month of April, where on April 2nd, we'll be doing some herping with the newly elected Texas chapter of the Wildlife Society president, Romy Swanson, who was actually a former president of this student chapter at Texas State a while back now. But we'll be doing some herping with him down in Palmetto State Park, alongside with another special guest, Dr. Simpson, who was the recently retired wildlife biology director at Texas State. So it's a real treat that he's able to come. He has both his vaccines, and he said he's good to go. So we're really happy that he was able to try to make this event with us. So I'm pretty sure what Amanda told me is we're planning to open the sign up for this event sometime tomorrow at around 8 o'clock or 8:30. So we'll send an announcement, a reminder of when this event will open, and then just be quick on the button if you are interested. And then April 3rd, we'll have another one-day event. It'll be with our former Texas State student chapter alumni, Christian Iturralde. He did a foraging and surviving event in Central Texas last semester that went really well, really fun. It was at Lime Kiln Trailhead. This time we're planning to go more in detail on fire and knots. It's going to be a full workshop and learning these different types of survival skills and potentially life-saving skills if you end up in a situation while doing field research in the middle of nowhere. So it's always good stuff to have under your tool belt. And we're welcoming 10 people, and hopefully the sign up will be posted sometime in the coming days as well too. But there'll definitely be more updates on the calendar for that description as well too. Hopefully by Friday. Looks like April 4th will be Easter, so definitely enjoy that day with family and friends. We'll have our 6th chapter meeting on the 7th. We are planning to do a Rockport restoration visit. We'll be probably camping at Goose Island and then helping with Aransas Natural Pathways and trying to help them with their wildlife gardens there. That's still in the works right now. We're trying to figure out all the different types of logistics to see how many people we could bring and how many camping sites we could get. So stay up to date with that, and we'll definitely send you some emails. We do have another opportunity with our newly established relationship with Texas Wildlife Association and their headquarters just right down the street on Hunter Road, going towards New Braunfels. Looks like we'll be doing their first ever bio blitz at the headquarters. We are basically going to be taking inventory of all the different types of species that we could find on the property that consist of birds, incidental mammals, invertebrates, reptiles, plants, different types of fungi, you name it. If we could see it and if we could take it down, we'll definitely record it. We're going to be using iNaturalists and local experts to try to help us identify these species. And we have a data sheet already established to keep down data of these different types of species. The different techniques and methods that will be used are still in discussion. I'll be talking with Eliana Pena, who is the conservation director of TWA right now. So I'll be talking to her pretty soon to see what different techniques we'll be using in collecting these specimens and taking count of them. So keep up to date with that. There's gonna be more details on the calendar in the coming days as well too. But that sounds pretty exciting. And then 16th and 17th will be our South Texas plant nursery at a Lanchero Lamitas nursery. So we're definitely keeping in touch with them. We'll probably be following up in the coming weeks as well too to make sure that everything is set to go when the day gets closer. And definitely, and just try to make as much events as possible. And if you can't make these events because of work or school or just some other obligation, take advantage of the point system by taking iNaturalist photos or turning in a filled out field notebook to earn some type of points, because that would give you the opportunity of going to the prescribed burn down in Ozona, Texas with the Seven Oaks Ranch. So that is pretty promising. It looks like that's a for sure thing that will happen this semester, and that would be based off the amount of points that our seven members that are able to go will be able to attend. So the recent update right now is we have access to a second specimen room. Some of y'all might wonder, like, man, I didn't even know we had one. So our first specimen room that we always use and a lot of the taxonomy and identification courses use is Supple 179, where a lot of the teaching specimens are at. They're a lot more neater and cleaner. But we do have access to a second specimen room in 136. I was able to talk to Dr. Green, and it looks like we're going to be having a lot of work on our hands and a lot of projects to keep us busy for the coming semesters. Some of the specimens that you'll see are going to be in these photos, starting with these large taxidermy mammals that are just sitting around and collecting dust, to a whole collection of North American bird species. I was doing some tours with the Education and Domestic Beetle Colony, because they will probably be using a lot of these specimens in the coming semesters and events for their different types of projects going on. But if anyone is interested in doing a small tour of the specimen room, just let me know, and I'll definitely try to find time to bring you out there and to check up on it. And like I said, it looks like, well, first of all, we're gonna try to do some inventory in this specimen room, try to figure out what is in it. Not even the professors have a clue of how many specimens, what type of specimens are in this room. It's just so much, and it's overwhelming at times when you're looking around. So there's a section for birds, and then what you're seeing right now is just a bunch of randoms, a lot of unknowns, things in bags, boxes, things that are labeled, that are not labeled, and were forgotten over the years. Some of the stuff in these freezers could be a good 5 years old, who knows? So there's a lot of I guess a lot of preparation and future events that could be planned out of this material, such as specimen prep, which is a really good skill to have on your resume and really fun at the same time, and trying to learn the species. And like you said, like I said, like there's drawers of specimens for this one right here. We got maybe more than 10 to 9 just raccoons. It's crazy. It's a lot of backups too. Some of these specimens are as old as maybe 20 to 25 years already, and they're not too bad. It's just they really need to be in a data sheet and collected. So while we're doing these inventory checks, we're definitely gonna need y'all's help. And if you're ever looking into getting a job in like curation or trying to learn how to collect more data in an organized manner, this is probably the opportunity for you, and getting this type of experience and getting familiar with a lot of new species that you might have not even known existed. So it's a great little place to check out. What happens to our domestic beetle colony? So the main plan was to use the domestic beetles as a tool or method in cleaning our specimens and adding to our student specimen room for y'all's benefit and trying to get ready for exams and midterms and studying up on skulls and different types of pelts and stuff. But since we have access to the second specimen room, that idea is kind of out the door. But what we can do is keep up with the domestic beetle project, and maybe we could do some undergrad research with it and keep it going like that. And also, with this, even with this second specimen room, once we get inventory, I'm pretty sure we won't have every species that we need. So we could continue adding to the specimen collection as the years go by, and with the help of the domestic beetles. So there's still a lot of use out of those beetles, and so far they've been doing really well. They just ate up a full mouse, cleaned up from meat to bone, and it looks pretty good in what they're doing. And then UTSA. So if y'all don't know, the University of Texas at San Antonio, right down the street on I-35, they recently just started up a new wildlife society about 2 years ago. They were hitting some bumps in the road with paperwork and applications and trying to figure out like who is able to lead their program. But it looks like they got things figured out. I'm in contact right now with their society advisor to see if they need help in creating their own student specimen room or specimen collection, because as of right now, it doesn't look like they have a wildlife biology major, so that probably means they don't even have a specimen room. So if they have a wildlife society, they should have access to some specimens, and instead of making the attempt to go out in the wild and collect them, why not use our specimens, especially the excess ones that we don't need. um, According to Dr. Green, it looks like our plan was to chunk a lot of the stuff that we don't need. I'm like, no, we can use it for something else. Let's use it, but it's a good use, and try to contact UTSA to see if we can help them out with anything. So that's in the works, and it looks pretty fun, a little overwhelming, but definitely some things to look forward to. So definitely look out for some emails or any updates with the calendar, saying inventory checks of some sort, because we're definitely going to start creating those data sheets, and we would love to teach y'all and prep y'all of how to take inventory, and just so we could get some more points on y'all's resume. And then the next opportunity that just recently got updated to us was